So I'm going to press A to select all of these and delete them all. I'm going to hit 1 to go into front view. And remember that when we press Shift A to bring up the add menu, whenever we add an object like a plane or something like that, it is added where our 3D cursor is. So I'm actually going to go into front view again by pressing 1. I'm going to delete that and I'm going to press Shift A and add let's add a cone this time. I'm going to hit G to grab it and hold Control to constrain it. That moves it perfectly right up on our lines here. And if I press Scale, you'll see that the cone rather, scales out exactly from this center point. That center point is called your origin point. So if I rotate around that, you'll see that that point is like in the center of that cone. So I'll press 1 to go into front view. And I'll hit Control Z to undo that scale. But what if I didn't want it to scale from the center? Instead, I wanted it to scale from the bottom. I'll hit Control Z. One quick way to do that is to position your 3D cursor at the bottom of the object. As you can see, it's already there. And say it was press once again. You change the position of your 3D cursor by pressing Control and right mouse. But if I hit Shift C, that 1 brings everything into focus, and 2 sends the 3D cursor back to the center. But say I wanted to scale this from the bottom. I have my 3D cursor at the bottom of the cone, and if I change the pivot point, or this pivot point is the origin point. Those are 2 words that go hand in hand also. So if I change this to 3D cursor, and I hit scale again, it's going to scale from the origin of the 3D cursor. And so say I press D to duplicate this, hold Control to constrain it and move it exactly 1 over like that, and I hold Shift to select both of them, and I hit S to scale again. They're both going to scale from that basic point there. But let's see, say I'll delete this one, and actually I'm going to delete that also. Let's hit Shift A and let's add another cone, and let's hit G to grab it, Control to constrain it, and bring it up, and say I hit D to duplicate it, and then once you duplicate something, you don't have to hit G to grab it. It automatically goes into grab mode. So just once you duplicate something, immediately hit Control if you want to position it precisely, and it will snap. So we'll move this one exactly over, and then I'll shift select this other one and hit D again, and this duplicates these. I'll hold Control and move this over, and let's just say to make this even, I'll duplicate this one by pressing D, hold Control, move it over, and I now have these 5 cones. If I right click to lasso select them all and I press scale, you can see how they all scale to the point of where that 3D cursor is. And that is because under our pivot point we have it selected to 3D cursor. If we change it to medium point and press S to scale, Blender's going to find the dead center of all your selection, of everything you have selected, and have it scale from that point. So I'm going to hit Control Z there. Say these are a bunch of teepees on an Indian plain, and say you're telling a story about magic teepees that grow not as one but individually, and you wanted to scale these down individually. What you would do is under your pivot point you would select individual origins. Then what that's going to do is cause each object to scale to its own specific origin point. So now if I press S to scale it, they're all going to scale to their same point. And I'll hit G and grab them and bring them down. Now currently we have 5 individual objects, but if we wanted to, well, see, if I select this object and hit tab to go into edit mode and zoom in, hold shift and middle mouse to pan over, and then zoom in some more by using my scroll wheel, you'll see that I can adjust, hit G to grab, middle mouse to constrain, whatever direction I want to go. I can edit these individual points and things on this cone. So I'm going to hit Control Z to undo all that. Say I wanted all these cones to act like one object. What I would do then is go back into object mode and then right click to lasso select everything. Then I'm going to hit J. That's all it takes, and this will join these 5 solo objects. You'll see if I double click and click off everything and then click back on them, it's now one object. If I hit 1 to go into front view and then R to rotate, you'll see that yellow point, which is the origin or pivot point, is where everything is rotating around. If I hit Control Z a couple of times, but say I want that origin point to be in the center. There's 2 ways we can do this. One, the quickest way and mathematical way to get the origin point to move to the center is to have your object selected and go to Object, Transform, Origin to Geometry, and this puts your origin point right at the center. Now if we hit Rotate, it's going to rotate directly at the center. But say I actually want my rotate point to be right at the top of this magical Indian TP and not at the center. What we can do is just hit tab to go into edit mode, press A to select all, and G to grab, and you'll see that everything moves but that point. So you can then align your object to where you want that point to be. So I want it to be at the top, and then hit tab, and then I'll hit G to grab this and put it back up. And that's just a quick and dirty way to move your object around to get to the pivot point you want. So now if we hit rotate, it rotates exactly around that origin or pivot point. So I'll hit Control Z. Then if we hit 5 to go into top, and I press R to rotate, you'll see they're all rotating around that point as well. I'll hit Control Z. And then of course the pivot point not only controls where the center of something rotates, but also where it scales. But then we can, if we press S to scale and then hold down middle mouse button and then drag left or up and down, we can constrain the way this scales to a specific axis.